Shot Selectboard meeting, November 25th, 2019. Call the meeting to order. Adjustments to the agenda. The first agenda item, I think, is being postponed.
Right, yes, and illness in the family. So we're probably aiming for January for that.
Yeah, anytime that works
Okay.
for them would be great.
Okay.
Any other adjustments to the agenda?
I wondered if you could add a grant application to the Better Roads grant for its erosion control measures on Crindle Road.
We have a copy of that on the table right here. This is something.
Add it to the end if you want.
Okay, we could add it to the end, talk about it. It's something that Junior has reviewed, and we can kind of go over how it works. So let's add that after.
And then the certificate of completion for the pumper is the last.
And we could do that at the end too.
Right.
Sounds good. Well, actually, we have a little time. Maybe do the Better Back Roads. We have till 6:15.
Okay. It's basically two sections of Prindle Road that have been identified as needing rock lining and some treatment similar to that for erosion control. Basically, as part of the municipal general roads permit, the state requires that. And this grant program pays 80%, so we would pay 20% out of the highway budget, and Junior is okay with that. It's estimated to be between $20,000 and $25,000 project. So,
$4,000 to $5,000 for the town.
right. And if we're approved for the grant, it'll come back to the select board in terms of accepting the grant.
To accept it. So this is really just approving the grant
Submission.
application.
Right. And it's a reimbursement grant, so we pay the cost up front. It's really paying most of Junior, but also materials. And then we get reimbursed that 80%.
Okay, are there any questions about that? All those, guess I'll make a motion to approve the FY 2021 Better Roads grant, categories B, C, and D.
Just B.
B, as
Yep.
presented.
Yep.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
No more discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Things going.
Is the signature needed? I didn't see one.
There is a place where it's needed, either the town administrator or select board chair.
Okay.
It's, on page 12.
So Dean, these things are highlighted, but you're gonna
Fill it in.
fill it in. Okay, got it. Perfect.
This is just
Yeah, I'm done. Thanks.
Do you mind if we start early? Yeah, no, I'm ready. Okay, great. Nice. Welcome, Carl.
Thank you. Yeah, the senior center budget. We've got, as usual, most of the categories are pretty much the same as they were for this year's budget, except maintenance. Maintenance is always the big item that we do a poor job of forecasting, basically. This year, we're proposing raising it by quite a bit to $24,000, mainly because of two items. One is the siding on the senior center is cement board, and it's spalling, and it needs to be replaced. We've got an estimate from Denton Construction. It's about $8,000. His estimate, anyways. Of course, we have to get out for bids for it. But that's something we definitely want to do, maybe late summer. Anyway, sometime in the budget year if we don't start earlier. We could start, and pay for it actually in the next year's budget. We could start earlier. The other thing we have is oil tank. It's a buried oil tank. And the state has been getting kind of strict about the oil tanks, buried or not, and what we are proposing is to replace it with an above-ground tank. That would mean removing the tank below ground and hopefully not finding any leaks in it, because if there are, the soil would have to be taken out too, which could be quite expensive. We had, our church downtown had the same kind of thing, and it did leak, and it was expensive because the dirt had to be taken off to a special area and decontaminated. So those are, and the estimate is about $4,000. So you got $12,000 there. And then the rest of the budget is pretty much similar. A lot of small, well, not all. The carpet cleaning, for instance, is about $2,200 a year. We clean it twice. It's $1,100 each time. We've got generator maintenance, water softener, septic cleanouts, which is, we're estimating $1,000. It could be less than that. In the past, it's been pretty expensive. We've had to do it several times. We're also going to do, the air ducts have never been cleaned out at the senior center, so we'd like to do that.
Good idea.
So that brings us up to 24,000. Most of the other categories are pretty much the same, except for trash, which we're going to have to do something with the kitchen waste. And so we already have started, actually. Casella's picking it up now twice a month, and it costs us $40 a month, which is pretty expensive, I think.
Get some chickens.
Yeah, well, people were taking it before, and
I
they're
know,
not
that's what I do
anymore.
mine.
Yeah. So, yeah, if anybody has an idea, somebody wants it, we could save $40 a month. Because, but they're doing good, I mean, they do take it away.
Well, we could look at talking to Abby about a
Yeah.
compost system behind town hall here.
Yeah, and we have to make some kind of arrangements getting over there. And she wants to put all kinds of things in there besides what we just dump. Leaves and layers and all that kind of thing. So, I don't know.
Well, I just want to say that I had the honor of helping out at the Thanksgiving lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of people there, and it was really pretty good, pretty fabulous. I just served. I didn't have to do dishes, though I'd offered to do dishes. Apparently, doing dishes is kind of the highest.
No, that's right, you can't.
You can't. You have
That's
to work
Dale's
your way
thing,
into
no.
doing dishes. That's what I think. That's kind of the higher
to be on the scoop.
echelon, right? Doing dishes. So anyway, but I thought that was wonderful. And my only other comment, which I've expressed to everyone, is whether there's some possibility for more outreach to folks in town who might otherwise not get out.
Transportation.
I'm willing to drive, transportation, or just how you get folks who are maybe less inclined to come to
Yeah.
get out.
Yeah.
And I know that everybody's aware of that, but
Yeah.
you know.
We are.
What about the increase in supplies?
Sorry?
The increase in supplies?
Yeah, we have, that is like paper, that would be the water coolers. But that's one thing that in the past, the water was provided, Dick Reed paid for it. And the town just took it over this last year. Because unfortunately for Dick, he died. And so now the town's paying for that water, not us. And there's also like the salt for the water softener. We're paying, I think it's like $12 a sack. Of course, they take it up there and put it in, so. In the attic.
Carl, what is your last name?
Herzog, it's Herzog. Everything else, the money in there for the director and volunteer coordinating is, of course, the select board's salary, so it's just a placeholder. We're assuming it's going up, but I don't know. Unless there's any questions on that, there's the other item is the capital budget, which is something new for us. But we need to look ahead because the building is getting older, and so it's 17 years old. So we're looking at, the first item on here is heat pumps in the cafe and in the great room. It's, what the heat pump is similar, it's like the Mitsubishi unit that we have in the entryway. It both cools and heats depending on what season it is. And it's very easy to control. Of course, we have central air conditioning, which works fine, except that like in the kitchen, in the cafe, they're cooking things in the kitchen. They want it cool because there's a lot of heat. Then in the afternoon, they're playing games in there. So people are just sitting and they want it warmer. And we don't want people messing around with a thermostat all the time because it's very inefficient that way. So the proposal we've got, and this is just a proposal from, we had Climate Systems, Inc., which takes care of the air conditioning. And they came out and we went around with them and they said, yeah, you could put heat pumps in here. People could turn them up or down as they need it and not mess around with the central air conditioning or the heating. And it was much more convenient. Of course, we got along with quite a few years without it, but I do tell you that people complain all the time, it's either too hot or too cold. They're never happy. And I go and I've changed the thermostat, or I pretended to, and sometimes that helps. Okay, that's the one. There's no hurry in that, but I mean, it'd be nice to do. Replacing the roof is a big deal, and this is a high estimate. This is putting in. We got an estimate here from Denton again, and two estimates: one for asphalt and one for standing seam. This is the standing seam. His base estimate was about $70,000, and I've added insulation because that's what they do in the library, And so we figured they'd probably want to put more insulation in, and also inflated it because we're not going to do this for a few years. So that would be the high end. Now asphalt is about half the base price, so you're talking about $40,000 or $35,000 if asphalt shingles.
With a 25-year life.
Yeah, it's I don't know what the standing seam is. It's longer. So it's how much you want to invest in it. And of course, we haven't done anything. All we did is get this base estimate that he put together for us.
It's got asphalt on it now.
Sorry?
Has asphalt roofing on it now.
Yeah, well, it is. It's starting on one side. It's beginning to get a little
And it's-
curling a little
Right,
bit.
and it's 17 years old.
Yeah, which is what you'd expect, I guess. So that would be another thing.
Not 25?
No.
Yeah, it never is.
25, that's what they say on the package.
Right. Right. When we were in Texas, ours lasted 12 years, and I complained about it. I said, don't complain. Nobody gets more than 12 years. So,
Yeah.
but another thing is the air conditioning unit works fine now, but sooner or later, it's going to have to be replaced. And so we got an estimate there from Climate Systems. And all these costs on this budget, I don't want to imply that 3 years from now we're going to spend all this money. It could be that, next year or year after, we spend some of it on one of these items. And then it could be that the next one will be 5 or 6 years away. So it's just a way of putting it in. I mean, you guys can do whatever you want. It's just that idea, that it's coming. Sooner or later it's coming.
And you have a policy for the use of the facility, because that would be a source of revenue, because it's a beautiful facility.
Oh,
and-
yeah, we rent it out.
Yeah,
Yeah, And,
I saw that in the revenue section.
yes, that's right, yeah, and that's, varies from year to year, it's usually $1,000 or $2,000. And the people put in deposits, which we return to them if they leave it clean.
Now, would this be a separate,
We have an improvement and repair reserve fund that we use for all town buildings. So unless the board wanted to change the way we plan for these things, that's when we've kind of budgeted certain amounts of money, like when the town hall roof was gonna be up in 3 years, we started budgeting 25,000 a year at the library. We did the same thing.
would this be a separate article or a separate?
You mean as far as not part of the general budget?
Yeah.
It could be done that
I
way.
mean, if you're putting it in the general fund, we voted to put so much money away for the roof.
Well, I think what's happened in the past few years is budgeting the money has been done in the general fund. It gets transferred to the improvement and repair reserve fund where it sits. When it comes time to deciding on putting a new roof, that's when it can go for an article at town meeting, or it could be a, you know, a vote by the select board to do the work. But the money kind of has accrued annually in chunks.
Okay.
It's kind
I
of,
just didn't know if it was a separate article, that's all.
I think for maintenance, I don't think it's been a separate article. Where it's been a separate article would be for like a new building or a new
equipment.
equipment, yeah,
We've
purchase.
had it in other funds, I just know, we've had it in other funds for like the Trails Committee and stuff like that.
Because that was a large chunk that was kind of for construction, really.
Yeah, and the idea there too, it had traditionally for the trails had been $5,000 a year, and the idea was to use a larger pulse of money into that reserve fund as an article to get a poll of what the town's value was. And if they wanted to be putting that much money into, you know, an untraditional amount of money into a construction project. I'm trying to think of, I'm looking at the other, on page 20 of the town report are the other funds that we budget into. Recreation Reserve Fund, we've kind of done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first year that was an article, and then after that, it was just incorporated into the budget.
Yep. And the amount has changed.
Yep.
The Affordable Housing Reserve Fund hasn't been funded for a while, but that sits, conservation, fire and rescue, and then, yeah, trails.
Okay.
Great, food for thought.
All right, thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Carl. I think, is this, Dean, do we still, oh, sorry, I could probably answer that. So after the December 9th meeting, I think we'll have had a full round of first budget requests from every department and every committee. And at that time, I was thinking it'd be a good idea for Dean to come up with what that budget would look like and populate it so that we can see what we're working with as far as a delta, a departure from the current budget we have. And then we can really,
Get an overview of the whole budget.
right, of what, you know, everyone's wish list. We've kind of told people we're gonna need to be revising it. There's a lot of big expense increases this year that are being requested.
Right.
So Mary is inputting them all as we go into NEMRIC, and I think giving you a copy, so,
Yep.
I mean, you do have, so by the 9th, it should have pretty much everything in there.
Pretty much up to date.
Yeah.
Okay. And if that's I think, a way you wanna look at it too, be a good way to figure out how to balance
Right.
everything. Let me just get organized. Jenny's here with Shawat Park and Wildlife Refuge Oversight Committee. Welcome.
The woman who does everything. Yes.
Well, you've seen the budget. I don't know if you
Yeah,
have
we are.
questions to begin with, but the budget is set this, well, we're requesting a budget of $15,000, which is a drop from last year. We completed the project to replace bog bridges was finished. Other things are kind of ongoing. As far as maintenance of infrastructure, there is a little bit of work to do, but nothing huge. So you can see there's some increases and decreases in various places. We did the Get to Know Your Park Day, which we added to the budget a couple of years ago. We did have an event this year, and it ended up costing less than we thought. We might reconsider that and do smaller events. That was, it was a lot of planning, but it's very hard to get people to the park. There were, I think there were good things going on, but attendance was pretty low. So anyway, we thought that if we increased the miscellaneous budget a bit, it would cover expenses we might have with community events or educational opportunities for people in the park.
Jen, do you have any idea of, or how do you keep track of usage of the park? I mean, just out of curiosity.
Well, we do have a sign-in sheet at
Okay.
by the kiosk, so not everybody signs in, but it gives us an idea of who's
Gives you
coming,
a
where they're
track.
coming from, which is kind of interesting because there are Shalotters who are regular visitors to the park, but there are people who come from other places too. So we haven't really tallied it up lately, but
But you can figure out trends.
yeah, I think, it depends on the time of the year. I think in the fall, and it's, when things are drier, there are a lot more people who come in the fall when the foliage is beautiful. There are people who come in the winter, spring, other seasons, summer tends to be a little bit hot. I don't know, people come year round. Maybe we can try to add up those numbers. It would be interesting to know, what we're getting for numbers now. But it's not we see, when we're in the park, and we'll see people going by, and not everybody is signing in.
Sure.
We do it in a very relaxed way, so.
No, I just was kind of curious about
Yeah.
that. And the decision for no dogs, is that that committee's decision?
It's not the committee's decision. It was a rule that came with the park. It's in the, in the ordinance for the park. And because it's a wildlife refuge, that's the reason that dogs aren't allowed.
But I mean, that came as part of the deed, or?
I'm not sure if it's part of the deed,
Oh,
but it was in the early agreement and in the early discussions about the park, it was a rule that was established way back. Yeah.
My dog is a wolf, so can I bring him anyway?
Well, yeah. Reintroduce them?
I know a lot of people would love to bring their dogs in the park, but
Well,
we've talked about it a lot, and I think that.
Well, clean up and leashing is important.
Yeah, and it is a wildlife area, and it's, to protect wildlife and
Do
to.
you have a wildlife camera? These are just curiosity questions to see
Yeah,
see
we
who's living up
haven't-
there.
Yeah, we haven't done anything with cameras, but.
I think the Conservation Commission has cameras,
The Trails Committee
and they
does.
might, and the Trails Committee probably has some, and maybe they could spread them around to the different committees.
Maybe just be curious to see who's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, it is a place where a lot of birders like to go. It's a good spot for bird watching, and I think if you go on to, I think it's the eBird website, you can see what people are seeing there, but yeah, it's something to think about. We haven't really tried to, use cameras, but I think, yeah. I mean,
It's just such a treasure, I just was curious
yeah,
if anybody's moved in.
yeah. Well, I think there's the usual wildlife there and deer, and we see things out there quite a bit. Turkeys, coyotes.
They need to hide out this week.
And we still have quite a bit of volunteer activity in the park. I was just going to mention one recent project. I wasn't part of this project, but Sue Smith organized this, and this is one of the ways we do work in the park, trying to keep costs down, but also to move forward with controlling invasive plants and also other maintenance issues. But there was a recent project this fall where there were 56 volunteer hours spent cutting large honeysuckle bushes in a meadow. And these volunteers worked in 2-hour sessions over 9 work days, and cut 72 honeysuckle. Sue calculated the value of the work to be a little over $1,000. People were, working hard, chainsaw work, and and that's the way we do a lot of projects. Even this item where there's a project in the winter where a contractor comes in and helps remove invasive plants. We've been supported well by Church Hill Landscapes has come and helped with that project and given time generously. But it's always in combination with volunteer work, and one of the things that we've discovered over time is that when we're working in the park and we're kind of taking projects in a little bit slower way, we're able to see what's already growing there, protect plants that are native, and kind of think through how the areas are going to be managed in the future. And so.
Thank you.
In good hands.
Yeah, very good. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the
Thank
budget, yeah, and the presentation. Have a good night. Do you mind presenting early?
I guess it's my turn.
Well, first, thanks for doing this. It's really important.
You for the generous budget from last year. I don't know if any of you have seen the fence, but it's all fixed now after somebody hit it, and the gate has been replaced with a rash gate that looks much nicer, and it's just, it looks great. So, thank you for that. We had originally talked about for 2021 asking for money to start to replace the chain link around the 3 other sides of the cemetery, but I talked it over with Chris, who's still active as my consultant, and we just thought we should spend less this year and just go for stone repair if we can. This year was tough for stone repair. We actually, a few stones toppled over. They were fixed, but we want to spend more time fixing stones and put the fence off while we can. The cows aren't there now, so that helps. They're not pushing against it, so it's not incurring any more damage that we can really see. The trees that were hanging over it, that were damaging the fence, those have been limbed, and that's not a problem anymore. So we figured this year we'd take a break on fence, give you guys a break on the budget, and it's basically just the mowing, which should remain pretty much the same. We never know about emergency, tree repair that might come up, but everything seems good for next year, that we shouldn't anticipate any big cost there. So the only thing really, the only big nuggets in here are, of course, the mowing, which is always a big one, and then headstone repair. And that's just trying to get a hold of Pete Demick and Jim, and so that they can dedicate solid, straight days to it and not try to catch them when they've got a few hours here and there. So that's where that figure comes from. Yeah, that's that.
That's
They
great.
can get a lot done in two good dry days.
I haven't seen Jim LaBerge's work, I don't think, but I know Pete Demick is a real master.
He really is. He knows what he's doing. Yeah. Yeah. So that's it.
Your legal budget's pretty low?
We're not anticipating any big lawsuits coming our way. Right. You never know, but yeah. That was just always a line item, so I left it so it looks,
So it looks good,
Yeah.
give your zero.
It's like we're considering it consumable. We don't really have too many of those either, but yeah.
Any questions for Vicky?
No, thank you. Thank you.
It's been a productive year, and just want to thank you for your hard work and having that fence go in.
Pleasure. I enjoy it. So, thank you.
No, it's really important, thank you.
I actually got a call from someone last month. They wanted their whole family to be added to the cemetery. And I don't think there's room for an entire family. But I told them that there was, if they were interested in being cremated, like you have to get into some very weird conversations with complete strangers over the phone. But yeah, she's thinking about it. But it was nice to hear anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment?
Public comment, nobody's here.
We can,
Public comment, yeah.
warrants, let me just make sure.
Well, I guess I probably should mention this while Vicky was here. She said she wanted to take a break from fencing and whatnot, and I guess I wondered whether, similar to the senior center, whether they might want to just put away a little bit of money to accumulate for, if there were to be a need.
And
for
maybe
another-
some repairs on the
Yeah.
old fence.
So I just
Good point.
threw that.
And they do have a reserve fund.
They zeroed it out when, to replace the fence.
It's balanced, but the fund
Yes,
exists.
there is a
as
fund.
far as-
Actually, they call it a checking fund.
Yeah, what is
Yeah.
that?
It's a checking account. It was
Just gonna
just
go along.
established a while back,
Let 'em do whatever they
but I believe it acts as a reserve fund.
And it
you
can carry over?
Carries over.
Okay.
Yep.
Through the statute that governs the cemetery commissioners.
I believe so. I can check that out more thoroughly.
I'd just be curious. It didn't come up in the audit, so I'm sure it's
Right.
kosher. What did you want well, I guess I put out a question to Carrie and Fritz. I noticed the select board meeting after December 9th is December 23rd, which happens to be very close to the holiday season. And I wanted...
I've canceled Christmas, so I'm fine.
Oh, really? Just wanted to see if people have a preference of moving that to 12/16 instead of the 23rd.
I'm easy, I'm here, I'm back. So whatever works for everybody, I'm good.
So we'd have 2 consecutive meetings, the 9th and the 16th.
Okay, whatever.
I got 2 yays,
Yes, then I'm good with it.
but I'd
That's
want,
what Frank's got done.
So would that mean actually canceling the 23rd or for now, adding the 16th and seeing how that goes with the potential of a fall?
no, I would think we cancel the 23rd,
Okay.
I should be able to do the 16th.
but we could always add it
Okay.
on the 16th if we need it.
I'm good with those changes, I'm fine.
Okay, let's do that, and just,
So we're going to do the 3rd, I'm
the
sorry.
The
Tell me.
9th
the 9th,
is the next regular meeting.
9th.
yeah.
And
Second,
the,
so it'll be the 2nd and the 3rd Monday instead of,
okay, and so the
2nd and 4th.
16th.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good.
Sweet. We would like you here for that.
And Lynn, is that?
Yes, yep, I'll be here.
Phew.
Is that okay with you? Yeah, all right.
And the audience will be here.
Go quick.
What do we got? 6:40.
Got
You want
any
to do
more warrants?
minutes before public comment? Yeah, of course.
A lot of them this morning.
Should have more meetings like this. Let's see.
I mean, we could do something like this if you want. I mean, this is that available?
Did you want to hold those
Trying
minutes?
to, it's in our rules not to change it after the adjustments, but we can pull things up. Yeah, those are minutes.
It's, I don't think anybody that would come
No.
discuss that anyways, except
Yeah.
for us.
I didn't really look at it.
But,
I promised I'd look at it too. Where's that?
never.
Yeah, where's, let's see.
Where are the minutes?
I have solar net metering.
I didn't see the minutes in here.
Philo Ridge, health insurance. Dean, do you have
The minutes?
oh yeah. Well, I was gonna, town report? Or no, we're
That was,
in the air.
yeah.
So we're probably gonna skip that until the next meeting. Okay. Minutes, October 28th. I think I had them in the back.
There they are. You have to find them. Let's see. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as may be amended of October 28th.
I second. I think line 100, I was, as far as the desirability, was referencing the Trails Committee's historical opinion. I don't know how to say that. So that the material from Hinesburg Sand and Gravel is not seen as desirable
For
by the
this
Trails
purpose?
Committee. What's that?
For this purpose?
For this purpose, sure. But it really wasn't, I wasn't the
Right.
viewer, it was the Trails Committee had changed that spec because it didn't hold up in the wet seasons.
So Mr. Krasnow said the Trails Committee found the material from Hinesburg Sand and Gravel not as desirable for the purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess line 128, you could insert after the word asked, the word if, to make that work.
Matt, where are you? Line
128.
128? Mr. Golick? I'm sure I
Yeah,
mispronounced it.
Mr. Golick asked if the select board will release.
Yeah, that's much better. line 209, we just need a last
Yes.
name for Emily.
Emily, no,
Nosse, N-O-S-S-E, Lehrer, 209.
209.
Nosse dash Leirer. Leirer.
line 261, just before $313,000. It would be totaling.
Can you say that again, please?
It'd be totaling instead of totally.
Oh, total.
And I think it was actually a larger segment of that trail. Wasn't it from co-housing to the train station?
Sorry, what,
For
where,
that big number?
Yeah, 260,
Yeah, it was gonna go,
line
it was gonna
262.
go all the way down to the train station.
But it would connect what hasn't been done yet,
It would
which
connect all the way to the
co-housing. So it
They
would
said it
be
was so much a foot to get there.
Right.
And,
30,000 a year.
yeah,
So from Champlain Valley co-housing to the train station along Ferry Road.
It's just one day after another. I'll give you mine instead, I'll swap you out.
Wow, these are long minutes. Line 1,316. Sorry.
he was used.
Yeah. Line 330.
333. Between agreement and document should be was used, I guess.
What was that?
It says, this is the Wildlife Refuge Hold Harmless Agreement document used. I would say it would have to be was used,
Or could be.
or could be used. I think it was could be used.
Yep.
Does this not let you? Sounds good.
All those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Still time, November 4th. Motion to approve minutes of November 4th, 2019 as may be amended.
I will move their approval. Do you have any changes in there?
I'll second it.
It's a mob scene.
On line 175, I believe the culvert size is 15 inches for the driveway. It's 18 inches would be if it crossed the town road.
Is that what the access permit reads?
So,
It's 15.
Does that state what it has to be?
Yeah, I thought it was on there.
So that, I
At
could need to
least.
see.
Of at least 15 inches?
Yeah,
I guess I would. I guess.
I thought we had increased it because of the,
I thought we increased it because
the
of
ditching and the new standards.
Yeah, the new standards I thought Fritz was looking at.
And then he said he was doing all that ditching uphill of it to shed water away from the household. And we
Right.
said, oh, good thing, those standards are, I kind of thought we had moved to 18.
that's for going across the town road. This is Jenner's.
Right, but I think Fritz was mentioning the better roads.
The standards.
Standards.
Yeah, and it only requires 18 if it's if that's warranted by the geometry and whatnot, but 15 is acceptable. It's 18, I guess, is,
Don't you remember they were gonna do that extra ditching that was gonna shed more water?
okay. And that would bring it up to a bigger diameter,
Well, I think
could be.
Fritz had proposed it be the 18, and he was amenable to it, and then that piece about the ditching came up, and then we were like, oh, good thing that we're doing the 18, but that's just from memory. We have the luxury of VCAM, we could go back to that just to make sure.
Right.
Or maybe Tad would remember the discussion.
Yeah, I think he's away tonight. I can check with Junior on that as well.
Should we wait to approve these minutes, keep them in draft
It's
form
important
until we,
enough.
Yeah, probably.
let's,
See if there are
Okay,
any
well,
other-
this, yeah, I think that's important enough to,
You want to table these minutes?
These
until
minutes?
we-
till next meeting.
yes.
Okay. So withdrawal of the motion. Louise?
But,
With-
yeah,
Withdrawal of your motion?
I guess I withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks, Frank.
Save that. Right on time. 7 o'clock public comment? No?
Okay.
Are you Larry Sommers? Do you mind going early? Okay. Should celebrate it when we can.
Why
Welcome.
don't you come right up?
Yep. And you're here for an appointment to the Trails Committee for a term ending April 30, 2021. Introduce yourself if you would, and tell us a little bit about why you're interested in joining trails.
Yeah. I've lived in Charlotte for close to 30 years, in East Charlotte all this time, in 3 different properties. And I've been fortunate enough to work in Charlotte most of that time as well, so I spent a lot of time here. I worked at Garden Way for 5 years when they were still here in Charlotte, and then I've been with Eating Well for 15 years, so here mostly, and then in Shelburne a bit, and I've just retired from there, and I'm a home consulting business, so I'm back in Charlotte from Shelburne. So, and I'm an avid biker and walker and swimmer and nature lover, so I've spent a lot of time outdoors in Pease Mountain. Well, the lake. Yeah. So I've spent a lot of time and really enjoyed the assets that we have in town. And over the years, I haven't had a lot of time with my career and whatnot, but I have volunteered. I was a member of the Charlotte Land Trust Board for a short term, but did volunteer work for them, keeping track. And I've done work with the Trails Committee over the years on Plouffe Lane. When that happened, I lived on Carpenter Road for a while. I volunteer up at Mount Philo, invasive plants, and just dabble around with the short spurts of time that I've had. And this last year, I spent a little bit more time with the Trails Committee. Just interested in the progress. I really appreciated the trail I've discovered through my biking interest, the extension through the underpass, and it's just fabulous, and I use it quite a bit. I live on Mountain's Edge now, and this vision of from the beach to the park and the park to the beach, I just think it's just a phenomenal asset for residents and visitors, and will really be a gem And in the future, and, you know, this phase that we're in now, it's lots of moving parts here, and so it's, you know, tough to do, but there's been a lot of heavy lifting to get us to this point with the next extension. And the next phase is going to be really the one that, you know, takes us over the top, and that's, I guess, that's what's in front of us is finishing, you know, the state part, but coming from co-housing to get over to the beach is going to be quite a lift, and I'd like to see that happen. So that's kind of what draws me to this endeavor. Yeah, we got easements and fundraising and town involvement and communications and a lot of stuff to do along those lines. Yeah,
Great.
so I don't have a lot of physical capabilities. I have a bunch of, you know, health stuff, so I'm not out there banging nails or, you know, working on it a bit, but I think I could help organizationally.
That's great. There's some fresh energy. Really
Yeah, that's
appreciate
what they
it.
say. Oh, great, this is great.
No, it's really it is, if we can pull it off, it will be a huge asset to the town.
It really would be.
I was out in, my siblings live in Eugene, Oregon, and there is this incredible trail that goes all along the Willamette. And there's this sign up about the woman who had the persistence to make it happen.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
you know, there you go.
Yeah, I come from the Hudson Valley. There's a rail trail there that goes almost the entire region. It's a really big, and we have so many needs that it addresses in town, across different demographics and places and whatnot. So that's why it draws me a little bit to it, and it's a manageable
Yeah.
effort, you know, for me to start with more volunteers in town, I think, too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion to appoint Larry Sommers on the Trails Committee for a term ending April 30th, 2021.
Second? Any more discussion? Oh, yes?
I have a question about the term, because I didn't really take that up with the members, so when I saw the invite, you know, was nominated for that term, is that, so that, was it about 18 months?
Yeah, they're 2-year terms, and basically everyone expires either 2020 or 2021.
Okay.
And
so we
the
wait
vacancy
for that.
right now is 2021.
Got it. Yeah. No, that's good.
You have another candidate for a Trails Committee
Yeah.
next year.
Yes,
We haven't met.
I'm Bill. Nice to meet you. How are you?
So,
Yeah, motion on the table. All those in favor? Indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah, look forward to it. I'm gonna stay for those.
Nice.
In case you have anything negative to say about it.
Yeah,
I wanna, no,
I'm sure there's a lot of that.
So we have another person interested in an appointment to the Trails Committee for a term ending April 30th, 2021. Could you introduce yourself and let us know why you're interested?
My name's Bill Regan. My wife and I moved to Charlotte only a few months ago over the summer, but I'm very interested in becoming involved in my community and contributing how I can. I think my professional experience as well as my volunteer experiences would prepare me to make such a contribution. I recently completed a 30-plus year career in public service, finishing out at the executive level of the federal government. And I've been volunteering that whole time, first at the community level in a program in Northern Virginia where we used to live, to help young people make better decisions about alcohol, drugs, tobacco, sexual activity. And I also was involved in a bicycle and pedestrian advocacy organization that was responsible for pushing trail systems in our community, but doing so in a way that worked with local transportation planners so that these other ways of getting around and being healthy were factored into transportation projects from the get-go. And I've actually linked up with Local Motion, the Burlington-based version of essentially the same kind of organization, to do that work here. So I'm an avid trail user myself. I've run, cycled, walked all the trails already in Charlotte and beyond. So I know, even from a user point of view, just how important they are to helping to create a healthy and sustainable community. So I'd like to be part of it.
Great. Is there a motion?
You do it so much better than I do.
Okay, I'll make a motion to appoint William Regan to the Trails Committee for a term ending April 30th, 2021.
Second? More discussion?
Well, welcome to Charlotte.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
doing this.
No, we
Thank
love it
you.
here, so
Yeah.
glad to be of help if that's
it's
Good.
possible.
I'm sure it is. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Good.
All right.
Awesome.
I know, I think you can, I think you can
Yeah,
pull it
likewise.
off. I think you can get to the lake.
Yeah.
You know, we've got the town owns that 10 acre, 15 acre, whatever it is, the town parcel. It's on the corner of, pretty much on the corner of Lake and Whaley. So that's,
Yeah.
yeah,
Pieces.
Yeah.
Forward to seeing the puzzle. Yeah.
yeah, that could work.
All right, guys, thanks.
Thank you,
Have a
guys.
good night. John's here.
John's here.
It's here, so that'll work out well.
Margaret's here.
I know nothing, I'm here.
Margaret's presenting the solar net metering agreements.
I'm gonna need reading glasses.
Quinny, 2 N's, Q-U-I-N-N-E-Y. Good timing.
Thank you.
Who's the fire marshal in town?
Fire marshal, the state fire marshal.
Oh, it's a state marshal.
Doesn't Dick St. George doesn't,
He's the fire chief, but as far as marshal to inspect public building would be the state.
oh, yeah.
There's one that lives in Shelburne.
Yeah, for a public building, it's the state fire.
It's a state.
Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of, like, we have an electrician.
so it'd be the
who's
Williston.
certified as a
I think he's
fire marshal.
located at the Williston Barracks
The
at the
Yeah.
state
Fire
police.
marshal.
All right.
There's
Well,
one
I
in-
think Green
yeah,
Lantern
that lives in
probably
Shelburne.
knows who it is. They probably dealt with them
Thomas
before.
Road.
Probably, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Can't remember his name. Usually we call Williston.
They have someone?
Yeah, the
Did
Williston.
you get what I sent you,
That's where
the
they're
email?
based around here. You look up on the phone book.
Did you get the email I sent you with the blog from the guy in California?
I didn't actually, did you send it just recently?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I haven't checked it.
Oh, no, not that recently. This is just it's a blog, and basically what he's saying is everyone in California is now going to have a generator. And all that generators are going to run on gas.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was my job.
Sounds like
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
I got a generator.
I got one.
Yeah,
I
do you want
think,
some terrible tasting water?
No, my job was to reliability of the Western Power Grid. And, you know, I'm sitting here thinking, what didn't I do right? Seriously, I'm not.
Hire Tesla to do some tunneling for underground power. I mean, you can't know the future. Wildfires. We're just stalling, John, unless you're ready. Yeah, we're early tonight.
Gabbing.
Go figure.
Wow.
It's daylight
What, gabbing?
savings.
No.
You're running early, that must be.
I'll just get one of my hearing aids.
No, you want to move up, or?
I just, I have the two proposals on my laptop in case you refer to them, that's all. So the, Dean sent in your packet, the two proposals that we received in connection with installing solar on the library roof and supplying solar to other buildings in town. They were opened on Monday, last Monday. Since then, I reviewed them and set up that comparison chart that you got in your package. I went over that with the consultant that we're working with, Lee Seddon, and generated the notes on the comparisons. And later in the week, Bill Calick of the Energy Committee also went through the proposals. Lee, Bill, and myself all agree that there's not very much of substance between the two companies. And our preference is to start out initially working with Green Lantern Solar, basically for two reasons. One, the person we'd be working with is based in South Burlington, rather than Norwich Solar, who are, based out of, or the person we'd work with is based in St. Johnsbury. So logistically, that would just be easier. It also was evident from the questions and the information exchanged between Green Lantern Solar and Dean and myself in the period from when the RFP was issued to when the proposals came in. The Green Lantern Solar was taking the RFP more seriously. They had, thoughtful questions, a couple of things that we hadn't considered, and just overall, those two factors led us to favoring them. So what we're asking you to do tonight, if you're comfortable with it, is to give us the okay to enter into discussions with Green Lantern Solar, to let Norwich Solar Technologies know that they came second and that we were impressed with their proposal, and if we're unable to reach a timely agreement with Green Lantern Solar, we would go to Norwich Solar. The key things to work on with Green Lantern Solar are the actual layout of the panels on the library roof. And the goal is to get as much capacity on the roof as we can, and that's going to be dependent on what the fire marshal says about what the clearances we have to meet. We also need, in the net metering agreements, we need to insert an opt-out agreement, and that's been done with Green Lantern and other companies upon request. So that just gives the town the ability to opt out of this 25-year power purchase agreement if the town wants to replace it with something else. So we need to do that. We'll also ask Green Lantern Solar to prepare a cash flow analysis for both the library installation and the supply to the town buildings and facilities, so we can now accurately look at what the projected savings are over 25 years and what the assumptions are that are driving that. So we've done that sort of work ourselves, but we've been, it's been somewhat preliminary, so this would really dig into it seriously so that we can go to fire and rescue and we can come to you and say, here's what the actual numbers are. Based on the deal with Green Lantern and based on assumptions like the increase in Green Mountain Power rates, over 25 years. If we go ahead with Green Lantern Solar, the goal is to present you with sort of a proposed net metering agreement at your December the 9th meeting, to take your feedback and then work with Green Lantern Solar to come up with a net metering agreement that we would be asking for a decision on at your December 23rd meeting. It's important that both net metering agreements be concluded by the end of the year, because the federal tax credit goes down from 30% to 26%, and that would impact the economics of both these two arrangements. Just one other thing, I inserted in the recommendation reference to a preferred sites analysis. That was something that the Energy Committee included in our budget request for FY21. We didn't have a price on it. The proposal that we got from a company that does this was $11,400. What we would like to do is talk with Green Lantern to get their agreement to actually do this work for us at no cost, in return for giving them some sort of preferred ability to develop solar on town-owned land in Charlotte if the select board or the voters decide that that's something to do. There's a couple of reasons to do that. Colchester did something similar. They generated 40% savings on their Green Mountain power bills. And then you also derive some rental from the town lands, that if it's a 500 kilowatt system, that rental income is between $15,000 and $20,000. So anyway, that's a lower priority. The top priority is the 2 net metering agreements. But I also want to try and, while we're talking with, if it's Greenland Solar, to see if they're interested in providing this other service for us at no cost.
Couple points of feedback. We just changed the December 23rd meeting to December 16th.
Okay.
Is that going to be enough time?
Well, we'll do the best we can with it.
Okay, it's not impossible to have a December 23rd if we needed to, but because it was so close to holiday and vacation time,
Yep.
we did move it to 12/16. But if there needs to be, it seems like there would be a quorum here on the 23rd
Yep.
in an emergency.
Well, I think it's, I haven't spoken with either Norwich or Green Lantern, but the speed with which this can go ahead depends in part on the amount of time that Green Lantern has got to put into this. For them, I think these kind of arrangements are fairly routine. I mean, if you looked on their proposal, they've done a lot of installations for towns in Vermont, so this is not tough for them to do.
Great. That was one. I guess the second, just to kind of reiterate what you're saying and see if I get it. Tonight, you're looking to have the select board give approval for the energy committee to enter into discussions with Greenland and Solar based on that proposal to finalize the proposal, which would include finalizing the actual layout of the panels, the net metering agreement, to have an opt-out clause in the net metering agreement, and to prepare an actual cash flow analysis. And then come to the select board with a final proposal.
Yeah.
Okay.
There may be some other things that come up as well as we get into this, but those seem to be the main sort of issues for us to be talking with them about.
For my comprehension, would you be able to, short period of time, be able to kind of lay out the structure of how this agreement works?
Yeah. There's 2 net metering agreements, one for the library solar and one for the town buildings in Thompson's Point. And both those agreements were included in the proposals. They're quite lengthy. And a lot of it is just boilerplate legal language. But I could certainly, on the 9th, sort of summarize the key points in the net metering agreements. And identify any outstanding issues or any issues that we've been unable to reach agreement on.
That'd be great. Yeah, and more, it'd be an educational piece, I think, just to get everyone kind of.
We should also, I assume, have the town's lawyer have a look at the net metering agreements.
After the 9th?
I guess I'm wondering, Fritz mentioned that before he left, that he felt it was important, and given the tight time frame, I'm wondering, similar to Green Mountain Solar, I think our town attorneys have probably been involved with some of these other projects, and they may be able to, take the boilerplate from Green Lantern Solar and say, we agree with this, we don't agree with that, and pretty quickly, bring us to a better place.
You've got the draft agreement,
Yes.
so we can get it to the,
We can get the proposal out
Out to the
now,
attorneys.
and then any
Now.
changes, we can have them review,
That would be true.
Okay.
and that could speed it up.
Yeah. I think if anything, it'll come down to maybe 3 or 4 issues, but, I may be naive, but, these have been negotiated a lot over the years with towns, so I think they're pretty standard now.
I guess I do have a question on analyzing town land for developing would presumably be to use to offset town building use. Is that right?
Not necessarily. The idea is that if the town, as a result of a preferred site analysis, designates one or more sites as preferred for solar, that provides added economic incentives to developers to build solar on those sites. And it wouldn't necessarily be to offset the town's use, but the town would benefit from it in two ways, I guess. One is by getting closer to 90% renewable by 2050.
On behalf of all town residents.
Yeah. And also being able to generate some revenue from leasing one or more of these parcels to the developer for solar, with the idea, of course, that those revenues would flow to the Energy Committee's budget.
Well, fine. Naturally. Recreation revenue goes to recreation. And revenue generation is not new to the town. I think looking down that road, there'd be a kind of a public informational piece that we would be addressing at town meetings and doing a presentation, as that materialized. I think that'd be a good way to educate people on the options of having solar in town. Is that the economic incentive piece? Is that state or federal doing a preferred site? That's a state.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we have the opportunity to do that now because the town plan has been passed by the voters and approved. So that's one of the benefits that comes from it.
Saving that for the Selectboard update. Spoiler alert. Nice. That was a good one.
Make the motion? It's too complicated.
That's a tricky one, but it's a non-committal.
We'll let Matt make the motion.
Okay, so make a motion to approve Green Lantern Solar as the company which the town of Charlotte will enter into further discussions through the Energy Committee to discuss and finalize the actual layout of solar panels, to create an opt-out clause to the net metering agreement, and to generate a clearer cash flow analysis to bring to the Select Board to approve a proposal for solar on the Charlotte Town Library roof.
Yeah, the library roof and solar for the town buildings.
And solar for the town buildings, so two
Yep.
net metering agreements.
And
Sorry.
draft agreements for consideration by the select board at future meetings,
Yes, December 9th.
December.
Is that okay, Lynn?
Did you get a?
Well, you can got it.
I'll get it, I'll get it.
I'll second that, so we can have some discussion.
Discussion, Margaret?
Oh, I'm just wondering, do you need to mention that the town attorney will be reviewing the draft? Does that need to go in the motion or not?
And to authorize, town attorney to begin reviewing the proposal,
Yeah, reviewing the net metering agreement.
the net metering agreements. Friendly amendments?
Friendly amendment. Second.
And we'll carve out, you think, a half an hour for December 9th? 45 minutes?
Yeah, I think,
I penciled it in.
yeah,
on
I
there.
think, if we said half an hour, if you had that time available, that would help really focus the presentation and the discussion.
Okay.
And this December 9th is not making a decision. This is just sort of looking at
Doing a final
how
draft.
it looks.
And,
And,
yep.
there'll be some questions that come from that. And so, we'll have those resolved hopefully by the 16th.
Great. So we'll just stretch it a little. But we'll find 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
We can push off minutes. I'll buy us 5 minutes.
Yes. Call for vote.
Yes. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Great. Thank you. Look forward to, yeah.
Thank you.
It's great. Got some momentum. Keep that one close by. 7:25, right on time.
Wow.
Lord. That,
Are they showing up?
No, this is a little, so Dean, since last meeting, did some extra homework and looked up some statutes because there was a lot of discussion about coming up with an equitable standard moving forward with the town's request for underground power. When, how, and where.
Right. And I discussed it with Dean a little bit, and I was discussing the part that had to do with the select board and the part that had to do with the zoning office. So I wanted to make sure that those got separated enough so that we were dealing with the part that we have jurisdiction on. And that's where Dean came up with this particular state statute.
So this is a standing state statute.
the way I read this is permissive, right? I mean, we can do this,
Yeah.
and we've done it.
Well, we may. It says we may.
That's what I mean by permissive, yeah. But Fritz isn't here, and I think that Fritz's concern, which I share, is we need some kind of consistency.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, I do agree it has to, we have to try to be consistent with what we do. And I guess it would all depend on each situation and the factors within that situation. You know, whether it could go underground or whether it, you know, if there's ledge there or whatever, or the expense of going from a pole that's a half a mile away.
Yeah.
I guess my question in the statute is, first word of the second line is placed.
Line or wires to be placed.
So that doesn't really address existing lines. That, to me, sounds like new construction this is addressing, and the
Transmission.
recourse is the power to remove at the expense of whoever placed it.
To be placed at a greater height.
Although crosses, where it crosses the street makes it sound like it's the present tense.
If it is erected or maintained,
If a line is erected,
If a
maintained
line
on, under, or across
of
country,
wires.
or is not changed or directed.
Well, that just says if it was done
Yeah.
contrary to what the select board said, that means we could change it and charge them to do it
right.
the way we expect it to be done.
But if the town hasn't said something or something already existed, I don't,
Well, yeah, but
I don't know how this statute has been applied, I guess is my point.
well, this is the second line, if a line of wires is erected or maintained upon, under, or across the street or highway contrary to the direction of the site, where we haven't done any direction yet.
Right.
Changed when directed by the.
So that
But does-
falls into if it's done contrary to what we've made a decision on already.
But does this authorize us to
This-
decide?
The
also?
transportation
Does.
board or select board of a town may direct a line of wires to be placed at a greater height or underground where it crosses a street or highway. To me, that means that
We can.
we can,
Any line.
any line decide that it be put in, to me, whether we could direct to somebody to make sure that it's placed in a certain place at the beginning.
And if someone,
And like you say, whether that means, I mean, realistically, this particular location already has one, and it's there, and it exists. There's nothing to me, this doesn't say that we can change what's there.
I think this gives us the power to, is what I'm understanding. Not that I think that's a consistent way of going, from a policy perspective, a consistent system for people in town who have wires that are crossing the road. I mean, this almost says we'd have to do an audit of every single wire in town that crosses a road and then come up with a policy that addresses being consistent about them.
Well, yeah,
To me-
unless we made if we made a policy that basically said if there was gonna be kind of a change in use, we'll say, of the wire, which would mean that it would have to be, if things had to be changed in the wiring, whether they had to be upgraded to a class 1 wire or a class 2 wire, or whether an extra
Primary,
pole had to be
secondary.
put in, however it is. If there's a change in what's going on.
And what's existing in on the planning? Because in the town plan, that's the only part I was aware of, was for new construction,
That was in the regulations, and
underground
the
is
regulations
preferred.
are not under the jurisdiction of the select board.
That's my question. So that's planning and zoning,
That would be, so,
depending if it's
So-
a permitted
so
or conditional use?
it would be up to the zoning administrator or the planning commission or the zoning board in order to enforce and
New electric.
no, well, new electric, but I mean, anything that has to do with our zoning bylaws.
That's
Just
on
because
private property.
It's in our zoning bylaws. The jurisdiction of the select board is this.
Town right away. Roads.
This is what the select board has to look at to say whether it does or does not go over a road. This is what we have to follow.
Got it. So the state's giving the lane to the select board for the town right away across roads, and everything else with power is being directed through the land use regs.
Well, even, I would assume that even if somebody was building something, if they were changing if they were getting a permit for it, I suppose there could be an argument that, all lines have to be underground according to our zoning bylaws, but that would be an enforcement by the zoning administrator or the select board or the zoning board or the planning commission.
Currently, land use regs say everything has to be underground.
That is one thing that it does say, but I don't know if it doesn't state it's gotta be underground if it crosses a road. It just says underground. So I don't know if that regulation states, it doesn't state over the road, but I'm wondering if it was more put in for developments. So that a main line may come across the road if there's ledge, goes to a pole, and then goes underground to all the,
And that's through the subdivision review
and that would be,
process,
right,
or subdivision approval process.
right.
so it's part of the issue here is whether this is a new service or whether this is an existing service?
To me, it's more of whether they're changing it or not. You know, if they're changing the service, then to me, if they're gonna continue with what they had, if they kept the line going to the accessory structure, they're calling it now, and they're not calling it the barn. They're calling it accessory structures now. If they kept that and then they went from there to the house and to all the other accessory structures, they weren't changing anything that came across the road. So I would say, to me, I would say nothing's being changed. Now, if they say that it's gotta be upgraded to be able to power all those buildings because of new standards, because they're putting in a new, bigger line, does that constitute enough change to say we believe it should be underground? But, and the way this state statute reads to me is, you know, we may. It doesn't say we have to. It doesn't say they have to.
Or should. It's not even
Right.
So,
prescriptive.
again, it's pretty much a choice of the board, from what I can see.
And then I think the question for the board, or a question is, does it make sense to leave it an open question for every board in the future to muddle through? Or does the board want to pursue looking at adopting a policy so that there's guidance for future boards?
Well, I think that could happen. I mean, I don't see why you couldn't do it. I mean, it wouldn't hurt to have more guidance to a future board. I mean, but your guidance would have to be based, and I'm assuming it would be based on this state statute.
And, yeah, and some
maybe,
consistent
and maybe some more.
philosophy, I guess.
Yeah. You know, and conditions that would be necessary to, you know, almost like a waiver sort of thing.
Trigger the request for
To
underground,
request
or-
to leave it above ground or to put an above ground into another pole on the other side of the road before it goes underground or.
Okay. So that piece for the select board alone, and just kind of putting blinders on what's in the purview of planning and zoning, might be something we pick up after, like in late January, early February, and put it on an agenda to talk about.
I'm good with that, but in the meantime, what about the specifics of these guys?
I kind of think it's, like at the last meeting, we left it that it's not really, and we don't have a opinion on it.
No.
And, you know, the fairest thing to me would be to not weigh in piecemeal on individual things until we have a consistent policy.
So what would you do with this one? I mean, if we don't say anything, what happens?
I don't know. If it's for the select board and the crossing Hinesburg Road, I don't
I mean,
see.
I guess we would have to,
If there's a trigger with land use regs and permitting, that would be.
that's already
in the
done.
Planning and zoning piece.
It's already done because they already got their permit, so for what they have there, so everything's permitted right now, so. I mean, basically, they're just doing the power, but the power, it's not you don't get a permit to put a power line across the road. So,
And there already is one there.
and there already is one there, so, I mean, to me, I mean, I know Fritz would probably say everything goes underground.
He kind of voiced both. Either everything goes underground or we need to be consistent.
Yeah.
Not this one does, this one doesn't. And the last one didn't have to, you know, just up the road from
That's
that.
right.
Right.
So even if we were gonna err on the side of consistency, it would be, you know, here's our opinion, we're not prescribing anything.
Well,
Right, but then what happens? Because the other person, we said, we did no opinion, but it was, he had a pole on the same side of the road that he was able to get to and do underground, which feasibly wasn't a lot of difference in cost
Right.
from going to keep the overhead and upgrading it to doing the underground, where if this one, I don't know where there is no pole close on that side of the road, within their property. that they can do this. So
To
how,
underground it, you mean?
to underground it
Right.
without going under the road.
I mean, what influences me is the fact that there's existing service there. And that's, so it's not a new construction, and maybe I'm wrong on that. I mean, I want to hear from you, Frank, on that, but what's kind of what influences me on this issue is that there's already, power there, and so that's not a new service. But I don't know if under zoning and planning that makes any difference.
Well, part of this is they plan on putting another pole in.
On their property? Or
Well,
the town right away?
that's what it said in the proposal.
Looks like it's just outside the town right
So it's just outside the town right of way, they're putting another pole
Which is
near the house.
not the select board's purview.
No, that's all Green Mountain Power.
And planning and zoning if it
Planning and
is.
zoning, if it happens to come into it, but we usually don't deal
Yeah.
with power wires in planning and zoning. Except for, like I said, on the most part, it has to do with PUDs and PRDs where they're making a development. And they request that, the planning commission usually requests that all all utility lines are underground. But usually that's once you're into the development. So this is not usually something that's handled by the planning and zoning office.
Got it. It's kind of just,
So, I mean, I think and if you're gonna go with that respect and say, hey, I think part of this was for, so that there weren't lines over the road. The line's already there. There's gonna be no way, I don't think there's being a way that's gonna be easily done to get it there. I don't know how well underground is gonna be. I don't know what there is for ledge there. I'm assuming there is some.
sounded like
Because
be.
it sounded like it from Mr.
John
Hall,
Yeah.
from Jeff to, saying that he's operated the farm there with his, before with his father and himself, many years, and there's ledge everywhere. So I expect it to be ledge most of the way on that whole piece of property, which is a small piece of the old farm.
They just put in a full basement, though.
What's that?
They just put in a full basement.
Well,
Did
it
they
had
last?
a basement.
I don't think
Oh,
so.
it did have a basement.
It had a cellar.
Okay.
Yes.
It had a stone cellar.
So does it sound like there's consensus on no action, but there's interest in picking this issue up?
Yes, we
I
need
mean, it
to.
certainly seems like,
Yeah, I would say no action, as in not requiring them to put it underground and take up a policy in the future.
okay, near future?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I gotta get smart on regs.
yeah.
I've always wanted to read those zoning regs, cover to cover.
Good luck with that.
I'll do it.
Wow.
It's
Don't do it at bedtime.
It's kind
No,
of
that's exactly
it's kind of like a web,
Exactly. Oh,
That's my only
Like I
advice.
try to tell our zoning administrator and everybody else, think of a project that you might want to do and just go through the zoning regs and see if you could get it to work. Pick a project, anything, and just apply the regulations and see if you can get it to work. And then you'll know what you don't like.
Yeah, while you're here, pick town on land. Project on town on.
health insurance, update and approval.
So,
Okay, well, that was good. Thank you, Dean, for the research
Sure.
and
Yep.
now we're running late.
I know.
But
I
then
talk,
you- but
I
then
talk
you're
too
gonna-
much.
No. Health insurance.
Dean, do you want to update us? Health insurance?
Yeah, just very quickly, in the past, the town has provided health insurance for town employees that are over 20 hours a week, prorated up to 30 hours a week, and then for 30 hours a week and more, it's 90% of the silver CDHP, which used to be called the Silver High Deductible Plan. The only thing that's really changed this year is they changed the name of the all silver plans to say Silver Reflective. And that's kind of a term they came up with that's not really that relevant. It's basically just a comparison of these plans versus what's on the Vermont Health Connect. It's a little bit obtuse as to why they came up to the name Reflective. But anyway, so I guess sense is that the select board is still wanting to provide a health benefit similar to what has been provided in the past. And basically the only difference is using the plan called Silver Reflective CDHP, standard Silver Reflective, and then employees are allowed to select any Blue Cross plan, but they're only, the amount the town pays is based on the Silver Reflective CDHP. So that's for both the premium and the out-of-pocket. And while you're looking at that, I'm going to blow my nose.
Now, we're looking at the silver CDHP one, not just the regular silver reflective.
That's the one that's been used in the past, CDHP.
And this year, looking at switching to silver reflective?
Reflective CDHP. There's two.
Got it. In the
Standard.
standard.
And Dean, just to summarize, the silver CDHP reflective is the closest to what is now provided.
Yeah.
The standard one on the bottom.
Standard, right? There's the blue warrants and standard.
Oh, okay, the standard one, this one, okay, all right. Got it. Reflective. Okay, the standard plan. And that's the closest in your
Right.
opinion as to what?
Basically, the next to the most basic, or the bronze is the basic in terms of higher deductible, lower premium.
So do we need a motion for this, or,
Yeah.
so is that gonna be like, a motion to, offer the same health benefit of the silver CDHP reflective
For the standard plans.
for in the standard plans to the employees, I guess?
Eligible, yeah, all
Or
eligible.
All eligible employees.
I would second that. Is there any discussion?
Just curious. What's on the agenda?
those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
I do wonder if you mentioned next year, I mean, it's a ways off now, we just approved this year, whether it might be good to have a select board or a subset of the select board kind of designated to look into health insurance, so next year, we kind of get a jump on any changes, and, maybe all personnel issues, I mean, not personnel issues, but, personnel policies and,
Just on the HR
yeah, kind of an HR,
review,
yeah,
HR team.
right.
You're volunteering?
No, that would be helpful. I mean, I think as things go on, there are more HR things that might be helpful.
Some housekeeping.
Yeah, just maybe some policies to follow, templates for whatever you might need, something. And I think continuity across the town.
All in place. Okay, that's a great idea.
I did have one question. Is it going to continue to be the same way it worked this year with all the money until you use up the allocation from the state, the town rather, and then you pay the rest, or is it going to go back to the 90-10?
It should be 90-10 for full-time employees,
Right.
yep.
Right, but this year it was like they gave you 90%, sort of as a chunk of money.
That,
I mean, we didn't get the money,
Yeah.
but you used that up and then you paid.
Oh, 100% was covered.
well,
And-
yeah, I
The
mean, I think
billing
it's
was
basically,
different.
what's that?
The billing was different. I mean, Health Equity was sort of told, okay, excuse me, you have $11,500 or whatever, what 90% of the out-of-pocket expenses would be, correct?
They actually weren't told that. I mean, it was basically intended that every payment would still be 90 and 10, but I'm not sure that they did it that way.
It's not, and it ended up being, even though it sounded simpler, it ended up being quite complex. I'm still having a lot of wrangles with that. right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say what I experienced is, in the past, that you would go to a provider and the provider would bill you, and then the 90% would kick in, and then they'd rebill you for the 10%. And I've experienced several times where they haven't rebilled, and I'm kind of waiting for that. And I'm not totally sure whether, so I understand your confusion, if that's what you're asking
Yes.
about.
And the math, it's like, well, I think we've reached this point. Why am I still
Yeah.
being billed for something that now should be qualified to be covered?
Right. So maybe that's more of a, I need to sit with you and figure out what is,
Yeah.
what the HRA is,
And then
has
maybe
covered.
you can get back to Health Equity or.
Right.
whatever.
Yep.
Sorry to distract.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you agree on with the other,
With the
With the-
HRA
with
administrator.
the HRA administrator, because there are some companies where you pay your first percentage and then the company pays their percentage,
Right.
and then there's other ones where they'll pay everything up until they're 50 to 90%, and then you pay your little bit.
Which was my experience, but it seemed like they weren't quite on top of when that 90% was met and how that added up with the deductible that we have to meet in order for
Right.
the health insurance to kick in.
Right.
So, it seemed a little.
Yeah, so let's talk on that.
Okay, good.
Yep.
But thank you very much.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Getting closer. 7:45, the replacement of 5 computer workstations.
So, the tech group, our consultant, has suggested machines. There are 2 in the town clerk's office, 1 in recreation, and 2 in the lister's office. There were a couple of questions that we talked about last week with them, and they were going to try to get back to us with slight revision. I think it's probably going to be no more expensive than what they quoted, which I think is $6,080 or $6,050
For all 5.
for all 5.
Seems-
So I
seems
think
a
that could
lot.
be a not to exceed.
me,
What was it?
to me it
That
seems,
was with
a-
all the software.
to me it
too.
seems a lot, but it might be the software that they gotta put in it.
Yeah, they have to put software in all machines, and we've done away with the displays, monitors for most of them.
Just
I think
reusing what we have.
We're gonna use what we have, except for one, which was an all-in-one, so we're getting rid of that, and need a monitor there. So the machines themselves are around $780, $785, and then the software, the licenses, and the installation.
And they maintain it.
They do maintain it, yep.
Okay.
Wow. Some of the usernames go way back.
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
Some of the usernames go way back.
Yeah. Right.
And with all these, they said that they couldn't be upgraded.
They are actually going to check to see whether the license allows the upgrade from a Windows 7 to Windows 10, but they don't know that until they actually initiate the process, and then they can find out. So that's one of the things that may cost less than what they've quoted. They've quoted the maximum expense in terms of upgrading, but
'Cause I just did that with one of mine.
the license allowed you to upgrade what you
Yeah.
already had.
And, well, I got the emails and everything way back, probably 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, and to upgrade to Windows 10, and I never did, and I just did it like about a month ago.
And you're here to talk about it, and your computer didn't die, as far as you know.
Well, now I bought a new computer because I figured I wouldn't be able to upgrade it, and then I upgraded it, so now I've got two. But anyways, nope, that sounds,
If we need a
Sounds
motion,
good.
I'll make a motion that we, this is the maximum, the 6,000 is the
Yep.
maximum, that we approve five stations, upgrading of 5 stations.
Not to exceed 6080.
Yep. Yes, not to exceed 6080. Thank you.
I'll second.
go,
Any more discussion?
sounds good.
Quiet crowd.
Ken, you gotta speak up more.
All in favor? Say aye. Good prompt, that's good. Let's go. Next,
All right.
select board updates,
Shalott Solar?
Shalott Solar.
Well, we,
So I have a few on, back when we last discussed Shalott Solar, they had applied to the Public Service Board, and then we objected and they withdrew. And now they want to have just kind of a more informal discussion, which I think is what we were looking for. We just wanted to, Select Board could designate representative, and, whether you want to have the town attorney participate might be a good idea, just to be able to at least discuss it. And it's not to say you would approve it, but to see what their argument is. And
I mean, of course, we should talk to them, and I'm happy to continue that.
Good
I thought, so far, I think it's gone well.
yep.
Yep.
That'd be great,
I mean,
thank
in
you.
the sense that they withdrew. So,
Yeah, that was a
So
good-
and I'm happy to, because I have an opinion.
Yeah.
It's great, and experience.
All right.
Bridge repairs,
So Fritz had noticed after October 31st that 2 bridges had, the abutments had some issues, which we believe are directly a result of the October 31st storm. And he had Stantec take a look at them. They came up with an analysis and repair estimate, which we've provided to FEMA. It looks like we probably will reach the threshold for a FEMA declared disaster for infrastructure. And so those repairs were, I believe in the neighborhood is 65,000 total, around there. So some of that probably will be grant funded. It may be a reimbursement type thing. So that's all I know at this point. At some point when we probably will need to make a decision as far as having them do the designs and then going out to bid for the repairs.
Is there a timeframe for the money?
I haven't heard anything yet.
What's that? Select board schedule.
So I just wanted to go over a combination of the meeting schedule, the budgets and articles. So we're kind of the drop dead date looking outward as far as the town report, and the article, or rather the warning for town meeting is January 29th. And the select board meets that Monday, the 27th. And really, I mean, that's the absolute drop dead. So it would really prefer to have everything wrapped up in terms of the budget and the warning for town meeting on January 13th. And from, I guess I've heard a little bit, we haven't actually gotten to discuss some of the budget issues, but what I've heard is, there could be a potential for the normal budget article, but then also possibly some reserve fund requests. I guess we can see when that comes up, but I haven't heard of any other articles out there that anyone wants to propose, so I just wanted to get that.
Did we talked a while about the donations part, maybe being a separate,
Okay, yeah, Mary
separate
emailed
article.
the select board about a possible article for donations, right?
It could be listed as, all listed and then put in as a single article.
Yep, so that could be, do you want that, the warning to be presented that way?
I think
At least a draft?
Has this ever been presented to the townsfolk
as far as I
before and it's been
remember,
settled?
it's always been
It's always been part of the budget.
part of the budget.
We've had it as part of the budget, but I know Fritz has talked several times on
Multiple years.
trying to separate it from our budget, stating that people may want to have a voice on who they're donating to.
Well, I support that. You've heard me say what I've said, but if it's been settled already, then I'll back off on that. But if it hasn't been settled, that is, we haven't had the townspeople say, this is a policy that they want us to pursue of these donations, I think it is worth getting it on for the town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But again,
I think, for me, every year, 2 members of a select board are up for reelection.
yes,
So this is my 6th year on the board. I've seen 5 iterations of possible
Yeah.
select board compositions, which are representative
Yeah.
of what the people want,
sure.
but pretty indirectly when it comes to something this specific. So it has come up in the town meeting discussion with some line item changes in the past 6 years of increasing or decreasing, and I think specifically the issue was discussed 2 years ago at town meeting.
Charlotte News, or?
Yeah, stood up, and then it kind of expanded the discussion about why was the Charlotte News
Sure.
not included, and they didn't get their letter in, and then the existing policy was anyone who submitted a letter that was put in and an amount that was put in. If they didn't, so about 3 years ago, committees that were just on automatic renewal
Yeah.
dropped off the funding. Nonprofits dropped off the funding at that point because they
Okay.
didn't submit a letter.
Okay,
The next year, we got a bunch of them submitting letters again.
Yeah.
So there was kind of a blip. And in every year, it's been a discussion point within the select board. But
Right.
I would think that if the select board wants to expand that discussion, an article to the town, even if advisory, of asking a poll of the direction the town wants us to go in.
Well, I think maybe we should wait till, take this up again when Fritz is here.
Yeah.
And again, if this has been completely settled, I don't need to make an issue out of it.
No, I don't think anything's settled, and just my observation
Yeah.
is now, there's two very firm positions about that's different than it has been in the past, and I think that's enough to really consider it. 2 of 5 is 40% of the board. And I haven't heard from you or Carrie, decidedly what your philosophy is.
Right.
So let's
So
take it up.
it's worth,
Yeah,
I
again.
think worth looking into more.
Yep, we got time.
Okay.
So, the only other thing which may come into play, it is not necessarily up, I think as Matt explained previously and we've discussed previously, the wastewater ordinances are not, the process is not for them to be adopted by a town vote. It's for the select board to decide, but a petition could be submitted, which would trigger a town vote. And the timing of that is such that the town vote is supposed to be within 60 days of the receipt of the petition. So it potentially, if the select board were to adopt the two ordinances,
Can we hypothetical and crunch the numbers?
yeah, I mean,
So let's say, hypothetically, that an ordinance is passed on December 16th.
right.
What's the statute?
So
as
they
far as
have 44 days to submit a petition, but hypothetically, if they submit it by,
Well, where does 44 days bring us?
okay,
Just, to look at
End of
Right.
January.
the bookends.
so 7,
16.
14,
Beginning.
21, 28,
44 days.
35.
Not quite the end,
First week.
42, yeah, the first week of February, which is past when the warning
44.
for town meeting is. We're going to warn, put,
From the 19th
16.
to the 16th,
So if a petition was procrastinated
February 1st.
to the
to
very,
the end of
yes, they weren't,
the allowance,
the allowed period.
the select board wouldn't be able to put that warning in
on
here.
town meeting.
But
Well,
it
okay,
could, in the report, it
In the
could
re-
still happen at
it's
town meeting.
true.
It just wouldn't be in the report.
that's true. We do warn town meeting in the newspaper, and that's legitimate in terms of being sufficient for warning town meeting.
Now, if the select board passed the ordinance, this is my thinking, that's saying that the select board supports this policy, this ordinance. This is a document that the select board publishes that we support. If, for some reason, someone decided to petition a vote and wait to the last 3 days of what statute allows for that petition to purposely not get it in this document, to me, that's on the petitioners, not on the select board's responsibility. They have 41 days to get it in this town report if they want to petition a town vote on an appeal to the select board's ordinance if it were adopted. This could be for a speed limit change too.
Right.
So from a policy perspective of us planning, voting on something, I don't see this as something we should be pivoting for. I mean, I think 41 days is plenty of time to submit a petition if an ordinance passed
So, okay,
and
so
an appeal is,
I would assume that if it was,
Desired.
if it was passed by the select board and there was gonna be a petition done, it would probably be done
quickly.
fairly quickly.
oh, yeah.
I would hope so.
Because they wouldn't want to default themselves.
But
Right.
if they go over the time frame, then we would have to have a separate vote.
Right.
Okay.
No,
No?
they would have to have a separate warning. It wouldn't be
Okay.
included in the town report.
That's
They
true.
can still warn it for town meeting day.
Oh, okay.
Which is when we have the most amount of voters. To me,
Yes.
that's the most important thing.
Okay, I'm with you.
If people in town want to petition
Yeah.
any appeal to any select board ordinance,
Do it.
the select board should plan to have as many people voting on that as possible.
Okay. So we can
And
warn it
that's still
separately.
possible.
Yep.
It just would not be in the town report.
Right.
Okay.
And that would be procrastinating to the last 3 days of
Right, so-
what state statute allows.
Right.
Okay.
So I don't really see it as an issue for
Okay,
the
I'm with you.
select board
As
to
long
act
as
on.
if they are approved, that they're approved within the December, early January, middle of December or up to early January.
Yeah. I've
Would-
got other
would allow
questions
that.
about this whole situation, but they don't pertain to
It's-
this particular
Timing.
part of it.
And you want to save that for the
Well-
December 9th? Or now?
Well, I want to, I don't really want to save it, it's just that it doesn't pertain to, really, it doesn't pertain to the ordinance or the allocation ordinance, the use ordinance or the allocation ordinance. It has to do with what's existing. I mean, we're trying to allocate septic, and we're talking about allocating septic from the town. And my question is how much of that septic is already created?
I think we have that number.
I know
As far as-
I know we have, but I'm just trying to figure out how much is already created, if these gallons per minute are
Oh,
what
the
it-
actuals.
what actually exists, or what could be created on that particular area.
Yep, I think Dave Marshall has that.
Yeah, I thought that we'd gone, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought we'd gone through all that. Or did I miss something?
I don't know, and I may be wrong, I may not, I don't know. So
Okay.
it was just a question I had of whether what we're trying to allocate is actually done and just needs to be hooked up down here
Yes,
to our pump station,
that's
or does it have to be
built.
built on site?
The excess capacity that is being proposed to lease to entities in town via the application process comes out of the existing septic system that's in place right now and working, minus 10% reserved for future town use, if
Which may
needed.
not be enough with the way their buildings seem to be
But then, but that's
expanding.
but that's like 6,000 of 17,000 gallons per day that is out there
Right.
and not built. So that there's those two. And those numbers are very rough. I should have memorized them. But Dave Marshall will be at December 9th.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So that sounds like a
So-
good summary as far as the scheduling goes.
Yeah, and then I think just to loop back on the potentialities for ordinance, if it is approved and there is a petition, the select board, does the select board want that? Does the select board have any choice? Or that gets warned because it's a petition?
Right,
It's a petitioned article,
right.
so we're not putting that
The
on.
only question would be timing wise. It has to be within 60 days. 30 days or 60. Maybe 30 days of when the petition gets submitted. I'm not quite remembering that.
Are you saying the petition could be submitted too early?
No, but the hearing, or the vote has to be within a certain number of days. So, I mean, possibly if it gets submitted very late in that period, it's up to the select board as to whether you say it's going to be held on town meeting or some other date, but.
Right.
So
But it's impossible, is it impossible that it's
not,
gets, let's say, December 16th, an ordinance is submitted, and on December 17th, a petition is submitted. Is that too early?
right,
Because it has to be within 60 days. Does that get us to town meeting?
yeah, that's a,
Not that the select board has any
I think they
control
can,
over
I think
that.
they can appeal it at any point after it's been approved by the
That's what I
select
mean. Say
board.
they appealed it on the 6th, on the
on the
17th.
17th.
Yeah, they can do that.
But then the
Right.
town is required to vote on it maybe before town meeting occurs. Because it's a 60-day window, the state says.
Yeah. I think there is a
December,
possibility of
January,
that, right,
February.
right.
So,
It,
the.
it
so
sounds like the people who are interested in petitioning are interested in having it be a
That would
town-wide
be the
vote.
intent. Well, that would be great.
So,
And maybe that would be something to, if this was to happen, maybe that would be something to have in their petition. If they would, to have their petition to have a townwide vote at town meeting.
On town
And
meeting
that-
day.
On town meeting day, and that's.
It's
that-
Australian ballot,
And
but-
that would be, to me, that would
mhm.
say that all parties agree that it happens on that date.
I would think that'd be the most democratic.
But it's also based on when they submit it. So if they submit it and there's a requirement, statutory requirement to have that vote within 60 days,
And
and
can they
they,
waive that? That's the question.
I don't know, I think they should just be aware of it when they submit it, is probably the best way.
Or the select board could insulate that eventuality by delaying the vote so that 60-day window counts back from town meeting day.
Right. Okay, so I'll
So
look at
that-
that, I'll look at that language and.
That would be,
Just take that, just write it all up on the wall.
you have a couple of Venn diagrams going?
That sounds good.
That would be all the moving parts to the timing that I can
Right.
think of.
This is this done. These are all the warrants.
Right.
And that's all to ensure that
So
if
actually
there's an
this-
appeal to an ordinance, if the ordinance passes, as many people in town can weigh in on
Wait.
their opinion.
That's what we need.
Right.
So this is the, actually, I just found where we warned, traffic ordinance, and should not become effective,
60 days.
60 days
Shall
unless
become
petition
effective
submitted.
60 days after adoption.
No, there's an ordinance that just isn't visible there, or a statute.
Yeah, maybe this doesn't do what I,
Right, it's that last piece.
right, the number of days, yep. Within which the
requirement
vote is
within.
required, yep, okay, never mind.
No one petitioned that one?
Nope, it's in effect. Speed limit, Churchill Road. So the last thing I had was, Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission is hosting a legislative breakfast, which they're, having some, a discussion of potential items, legislation that they are focusing on, but they're also asking for feedback from towns. So I didn't know if the select board wanted to designate somebody to attend or not.
Well, I think someone should go.
I'd like to go.
Can you do it?
Yeah, but what time is the,
It's a breakfast, so I'm not totally sure, but there's an invite I can send to you. It's
That'd be-
probably in the neighborhood of 8 o'clock, 7:30.
yeah, that'd be great.
Yep.
I eat breakfast.
I don't eat breakfast.
I can't remember what I had for breakfast. No, that's not true, because I eat the same thing every day, so. You can always remember. I'm available too, Dean, if someone.
More than one can go?
Sure, I
Yeah.
think so. I'll
Just
send it
check,
to.
but
yeah.
Matt wants to go, but I
Okay.
mean, if I'm.
If I-
Yeah,
yeah.
if something happens, I can go.
I'll give you my ticket.
Sure.
Do you know where it is?
The email says, I'm not sure whether it's, I think it's, yeah, I'm not totally sure, but.
Okay, it's in the calendar.
He's going if it's in the calendar.
Well, at least I'll get reminded about it a week before and an hour before.
Did we give these warrants to you?
Yeah.
Okay,
Are they all signed?
yes,
Wow, nice job.
I came in today. Because I'm just that.
Proof warrants?
So do you have the whole week?
Any
on?
other
Access permit? No, I don't have any.
highway access permit? Yes,
All signed?
all signed.
Just make sure it's correct.
Oh, yeah, the 15 and
Right.
18. Any other business before the board? Motion to adjourn?
I moved that we adjourn. I can get that out.
I'll second that.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
There isn't any discussion.
No. Is that point of order?
Yeah.
Great.
Aye.
Phew. 5 minutes.